Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all here. I was thinking about when I first left corporate, one thing that I was shocked by was the cost of those flip chart papers. I got one up here now, especially the sticky ones. I'm a flip chart paper snob. In fact, recently I was at a place where they didn't have the kind that had the self adhesive on the back, and I ended up taking my own flip chart. But child, let me tell you what, the first time I had to buy my own, I realized that I was being so disrespectful in that corporate job. Girl, every time I was like writing one thing on there and then getting rid of the paper, writing one thing on there, then getting rid of the paper. Child, look, now that I got to buy these things myself, I'm really thoughtful about these little flip chart papers. But I know we're going through a lot collectively. So I wanted to share one thing that I found really helpful to me in therapy. And I didn't actually learn this particular thing in therapy, but I learned why it was helpful to me in therapy. So I'm gonna need y'all to appreciate that I'm using one of my pieces of flip chart paper in this $70 flip chart thingy. If y'all know where I can get it for cheaper, y'all let me know. But like when I think about all the things I care about, that's a really big circle. That's my circle of concern. These are things I'm concerned about. And that's a really big circle. That's a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? But the things that I can influence, so I care about it, but I can't influence it. That's this really big. That's a big list. But then there's the circle of influence, which is a much smaller circle. These are things that I can give money to. Um, I can maybe talk about here on social media. But this is my influence circle. But even still, yes, there are lots of things I'm concerned about. There's a smaller group of things that I can influence, but there's this circle within both of these, and that's the circle of control. And there ain't but so much I can control that I have some agency over. And when I find that I am upset, that I have not been focused, that I'm feeling out of sorts, usually it's because I'm up here in the concerned area. I'm thinking about things that I care about. Because I care about a whole lot of things. I care about polar ice caps melting. I care about political appointments. I care about genocide halfway around the globe. I care about cell phone usage inside schools, making kids not be right. I care about a lot of things. I don't even have the capacity to influence a fraction of those things. And my circle of control, the things that I can directly influence, is like right here. And whenever I feel overwhelmed, what I learned was typically it's because I'm out here in the circle of concern or the circle of influence. The stuff I can actually control is a much smaller list. Now, what I wish were true was that more people did things that are in their circle of control so that we didn't end up in these spots where collectively, as a community, we don't have the shared power that we need. Like you can get together with your circle of control and somebody else's circle of control. And as you build community, you can really influence a lot of things. But when you're sitting in your home by yourself, doom scrolling and screaming into the void, child, that's out here. And that's gonna always make you stressed. Interestingly enough, another thing that I learned in therapy was I read this book called The Body Keeps the Score. And there's another book that's almost just like it called My Grandmother's Hands, but My Grandmother's Hands is written specifically for removing racialized trauma from the body for everybody, depending, it doesn't matter, what your racial or ethnic identity is. Um, the book is made for people who or live in the US pretty much. It's not a global book, but one of the things that I found was most interesting is that the first half of the book is really like unpacking what you might be holding. But the second part of the book are the exercises. And at the end of each chapter, there are these practices that you do to release trauma from your body. And they're easy. In fact, you don't even have to read the book, My Grandmother's Hands. You can just do the practices. But in the second half of the book, some of the practices are things that I'm like, oh my gosh, collectively as a community, these are things that we used to do, that somehow or another people have talked us into believing that they're not helpful. Case in point, when you are sitting in old school black church and there's the call and response, the I love the Lord, he heard my cry, and then everybody goes, ah, together. That act of like singing together, and that call and response is a trauma releasing mechanism. um, Dancing and shouting together is a trauma releasing mechanism. And so when you hear people say things like, I'm not going to church for entertainment, I'm going to church for information, fine. But what are you doing to release trauma from your body? You see, because ancestrally, people knew that they had to do things to release trauma from their bodies, and you can't do it always by yourself. That's part of what our challenge is here in the US. We think everything is individualistic and that we can do it all by ourselves, and some things you have to do in community with other people. That's why support groups are helpful. That's why um, grief groups are helpful. Even if you just go and like dance with other people, line dancing is a trauma releasing mechanism. People say, oh, Black folk just like to be entertained. It might look like that. It might look like that. But some of that entertainment also has some therapeutic effects. And what can you control? Um, are you getting sun every day? Happy belated birthday to my friend, Miss Nadine Ferris, who be making those smoothies. She be slanging smoothies. Miss Nadine turned 70 years old this week. And when one of the first things she asks you if you're not feeling well is like, are you getting sun? Because sun, real food, and you know what real food is, it generally don't come in a box. Mostly plants and not too much. These are things that you can control. And if you are not well, I don't know how you're gonna influence the stuff you concerned about. That's why you got to be down here, focused on the stuff that you can control. And when I think about um just historical things that we think we didn't need anymore, we we need to know why that is true. And so this week I made a post that I don't typically make, because I do like for people to reach out to me in almost any capacity, right? Like when people call me, I love it. When people want to have a question that I can answer, I love it, because pick my brain, especially about things I know about. But I found myself being irritable about the number of um, people who were sending me information about what was happening politically. Uh, I did do some evaluation of that. Two things. One was I feel like I did everything within my control to help people see what was coming. Um, and also, I think that I had set a pretty clear expectation. This is another thing I learned in counseling. Thought I had set pretty clear expectations. Like people would send me stuff and say, hey, sis, what you think about this? And I would respond, but then also say, I'm taking a couple of weeks off of the news cycle, just to not because I'm burying my head in the sand and I'm not political, but because I need a break, right? I've been writing about Project 2025 now for 6 months every week. I need a break. And I know that about myself. So I set an expectation that said, for the people who have my personal phone number, hey, listen, I'd answer their question or respond to their comment and then be like, hey, I'm taking a break from the news cycle for a little bit. But still, that was an expectation. But still, people would continue to send, same people would continue to send me stuff, even though I said I was taking a break and I didn't care to know about what former President Trump was doing. And it reminded me of the difference between an expectation and a boundary. Learn this in therapy. You can always have an expectation. And people sometimes don't meet your expectation. I can set an expectation and you can decide you ain't going to do it. And then that's when I need to set a boundary. See, that's when I need to put you on do not disturb. That's when I need to snooze you for 30 days. And that is I'll open it back up, right? Because I don't tend to block people or cut people off. In fact, I had learned, I did not know this about myself, I swear, but not the therapist I have now, the one I had before. She was like, I don't know if y'all saw that movie with the Nutty Professor, but the grandma played by Eddie Murphy. Somebody was acting like they wanted to fight her. She's like, "You walk over here, you gonna limp back." My former therapist said, "Nicole, when people walk over, you just like you gonna limp back and you gonna stay over there, and I don't ever want to talk to you again." I did not realize that I cut people off like that. Like sometimes people think that I'm being purposefully away, and sometimes it's truly like lack of awareness. I I don't, yeah. My best friend who is a minister was saying to me, she said, Nicole, um you need to pray for your enemies. And here's why I had a hard time with that. Not because I don't think you need to pray for your enemies, not because I don't understand that Judas was sitting at the table having dinner with Judas. Here's why I have a problem with that. You got to think about your enemy in order to pray for them. Like once I have decided, and sometimes it's conscious and sometimes it's unconscious. Once I have decided that I have a boundary and you on the other side of that thing, I ain't even think, how am I going to pray for you and I ain't even think about you? You see what I mean? And it's one of those things that infuriates people, and I don't mean to infuriate people, but I am going to set a firm boundary. You can decide I can't control nobody else. Honestly, in a lot of ways, I don't even believe that I'm all that influential. That's why I swear sometimes I don't know how I could be a community organizer. I wish I had more of those skills. I care deeply about how people feel about me. And if I told you I'm taking a 2-week sabbatical from the news cycle and you keep sending me stuff, you about to be in do not disturb or even in my block list for till my 2 weeks up. That's it. And 2 weeks ain't up till Wednesday, as far as I'm concerned. And that's a boundary. And people don't understand boundaries very well. It's like if you consistently don't meet my expectations, I have to put something between us to protect myself. I mean, and I think it's probably sounds real logical, but I know it is through therapy that I realize when I'm upset about my expectations being ignored, and I don't have control over what other people choose to do, but I certainly have control over what kind of access that I give to you, and I struggle with it a little bit because it feels like I'm being all like highfalutin or whatever, and people will call you that. Trust me, they will call you that. And I think this expectations versus boundaries thing is really important for some of y'all as we going into the holidays. You going into the Thanksgiving dinner, expecting people to act like family, act friendly, act Jesus like, all those things, and they never have for your entire life. So you keep setting an expectation, they keep disappointing you. You call me, you say you sound so surprised. And I'm like, listen, you can have your feelings hurt. You can use the mood meter to say how you feel about that thing. But what I need you not to do is be surprised when someone has done consistently the same thing for the better part of 3, 4, 5 decades, right? So, what does that look like? I don't care who tells you, well, blood is thicker than water, or that's the only family you got. If your family is harmful to you, you better make family out of what God has given you and have your friends giving. You better listen. There is no requirement for you to keep showing up for people to hurt you. Zero. And when I look at my life, I don't know what you have in yours, but when I look at my life and I look at the people who love me, on the holidays, I can control where I spend my time and how I get treated, and I can be with people who demonstrate love to me and I demonstrate love to them. And is it sad that those people may or may not be immediate family? Maybe. I think it's unfortunate. I am no longer sad about these kinds of things. Um, What I don't want you to hear is I'm telling you to push past your emotions. What I do want you to hear is we don't have to. There's a book called Untethered, and the guy uses this a story where he says a man has a thorn in his side, and instead of pulling the thorn out, he has the ability to pull the thorn out. But instead of pulling the thorn out, what he does is he just makes sure don't nobody touch it. So the more it festers, the more it's painful, and the more he has to protect people from trying to touch it. And many of us are like that with the trauma in our lives. It has become part of our story. And I have to be careful of this myself, right? The things that have happened to me, I think is important for me to own my own healing, me to do my work, and that I can control. I have agency over that. But when I leave the thorn in, now everybody got to tiptoe around my wound. Listen, you ain't got to tiptoe around my wound. But there's certain things. I eat almost everything. I love all kinds of food, but I don't particularly like cold proteins. I ain't eat no cold meat. And then there are people who like cold meat. They like cold cuts. They like tuna salad. They like beef tartare. All of these things. I like my proteins warm. So when somebody's like, "Hey, you want some of this?" I don't know, sashimi, my answer is clearly no. But in today's environment where people want you to like what they want, they be like, "Oh man, you don't eat sashimi," or "Oh man, you don't smoke cigars," or "Oh man, you don't." Listen, you know what you like, you know what you appreciate. And many times when we get mad at other people, it's because they have firm boundaries. They know what they like, and they ain't gonna let you push your thinking and your thoughts onto them. I try to be incredibly open about, where I might be wrong about things. But one thing my body won't let me ignore, my body tells me when I'm in a space consistently that is not me honoring myself. And whether that's my stomach being in knots, whether that's me feeling like I got pain in my chest, whether it's my skin feeling like it's on fire, whether that's like if I do it consistently, now I'm exhausted at the end of my time with you, those are all indications because the body keeps the score that, you are putting yourself in a position that you shouldn't really be in. And here's the thing. I am concerned about a lot of things. I'm concerned about what's happening to the general family in the United States of America. I'm concerned about that. I can't influence what my life is like with my close knit family and friends. But what do I control? All I can control is how I show up. Do I show up like family? Do I show up friendly? And if I do that, hey, you can decide how you want to interact with me or not. But it don't mean I need to come to a table and be shoved cold proteins if I don't want 'em. And so I hope y'all know that how much this shows that I love y'all, because these flip chart papers, I don't know if you know, listen, I try not to be wasting these papers because Lord, I need to apologize to whoever was responsible for buying the supplies when I was in learning and development back in 2009. Because baby, I would write a little something at the top, and if I didn't like how it was, I was gonna delete it. But look, just to recap here, I was gonna tear that thing down and redo it. Just to recap here, look, what can you control? Can I control it? And sometimes we keep this stuff in our minds. We don't put it on paper. But when your thoughts are taking control of you, this is what I do. I write it all down. Write it down, because a thought that's just stuck in your mind can't be questioned. And when you write it down, you're like, am I concerned about who the president of the United States is? Yep. Am I concerned about appointments? Yep. Not concerned about all that. Can I influence these things? At this point, send money to ACLU. Send my money to the ACLU. That's about all I can do. But for now, I'm a few days into my 2-week sabbatical, and that's what I can control. And I invite you to do the same thing. And if you find yourself doom scrolling, just know there are other things you can do for these dopamine hits. One is exercise, another is get sun, another is go on ahead and get on out there and walk a little bit, eat real food, not too much. And yeah, Jocelyn, buy me some more of these because I'm on the last two. All right, good people. It's oh, and happy 26th birthday to my Khalid Smith. He's the only child I got. He don't act like I'm the only mama he got. But can I control that? Absolutely not. So we just gonna wish him a happy birthday. And listen, y'all take good care of yourselves because we got to be, if we decide that we're going to take collective action against this, we got to be well. Okay. We got to be well. You cannot, you can try to take care of other people while you are not well, but my love, it limits the amount of time, energy, passion, and commitment that you can put into this thing. Okay. Now, if y'all happen to know my son, why don't y'all text him? Because some days I wish I would have had more children so I could have a favorite. That reminds me, if you did miss the comedy show, let me know if you want the link because I think I did good, y'all. I think I did good. And I think I might do it again. Even that, having a hobby that you don't take serious, another thing I learned from therapy, hobby that you don't take serious, you're not that great at, um, another way to relieve some stress and to relax. Y'all take care of yourself. I love y'all. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got work to do.